guys, it's Lizzie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing another film. I don't do film reviews. I don't watch films. Another book review. I don't know where that came from. The book I'm going to be reviewing is Lucky Caller by Emma Mills. Lucky Caller is a YA fiction. The main character is a senior in high school. Her name is Nina. The book starts with a really hilarious scene of Nina's mom getting proposed to by her longtime boyfriend. And one thing Emma does really well is writes really awkward situations, but in a way that's like so funny and not like super cringe that you just aren't enjoying it, but it's like hilarious. It feels like you're watching a funny sitcom. Like I could see Emma joining a sitcom writing team because she's just so funny, so smart, so witty, and it plays in really well with like the theme of the book. Another thing Emma does really great is she really fleshes out her characters. So within like the first couple scenes of the book, you're introduced to her whole family pretty much, and each of those people are very unique to themselves. They all have their own voice and their own feeling, and she just does a really great job of that. So the book takes you along on her senior year of high school, and she's taking a radio broadcasting class, and in that class she has to make her own radio show with a group of other students. And the students that she ends up in a group with are kind of like the leftover students who didn't already have a group to go to. So she ends up with kids that she just kind of knows but aren't really friends with. And then one childhood friend that she's been friends with a very long time, but in the last couple of years they haven't been super close. And we don't really find out why until later in the book, and it's kind of sad, but at the same time, it's so good too. So they form this really interesting group of teenagers to create their own radio show, and you get a look into their brainstorming ideas. And again, Emma does such a good job of writing her characters so uniquely and independently. They all have their own strong voices. They don't like blend in with one another or blend into the background or anything like that. It's like she writes these characters in a way that they're memorable and their dialogue sounds specific to them. She just does a really great job of like fully forming her characters, and it really shows through. You really get to know each of the characters. You come to really enjoy them, even if some of them are sometimes kind of annoying, like they're meant to be because they're teenagers, you know? But that's definitely a strength of the book for me personally, is just how well she writes her characters. So her group of classmates finally come to a decision about what kind of radio show they want to do. And when they start, it's so funny. Like, I'm gonna keep saying that about this book, is that Emma is funny and she's witty and she's smart, and it just comes across so clearly in the book. There are so many times when I just like laughed out loud because I could just picture it so clearly. This isn't too much of a spoiler, I don't think, but one of the characters has a go at hosting the radio show, and he's like, when he's not on air, he's just like super cool and funny and like goes with the flow, you know, but then as soon as he's like broadcasting live, he suddenly turns into a robot. And it's so funny the way that she writes that, and like the other characters' reactions to him. And it still makes me laugh when I think about it. So obviously you've got the storyline of her being at school and doing this radio show, because that's like the main focus of the book, is taking you along on this class and the radio show and everything that goes along with that. Because the idea behind it is that they need to get listeners, and how do they get listeners? And they also play music during the radio show, and they start playing specific music based on certain comments they get, and it's interesting the way that it really evolves. Now during all of this, you also find out a lot of stories about Nina from when she was younger as a kid and growing up. Her dad was, and still is, a radio broadcaster himself. He has his own radio show. He lives out in California now and away from her and her family. One thing I really love about this book is that when you're learning about her childhood, Emma takes you back into this time of like pretend, where these kids get together and just go into their own imagination and adventure world, and they're just playing pretend, and they have their own set of like rules when it comes to the world that they create with their imagination. And it's so interesting, and it's very relatable for me personally, because I grew up playing pretend like that. I always think of this specific time. My best friend Tina and I, growing up, we would get so involved in playing pretend that it became so real to us and so imaginative that one time it really freaked us out, because we were like playing pretend about like a haunted train and there were ghosts, and it got so scary because we believed it, because it felt so real as kids. We were playing outside that we were like, okay, we're done, we have to go inside now, because it just got too scary. So I really related to the characters in this book, who we get to go along with their adventure and hear about their kingdom and their special abilities. And it was really interesting to read. It brought back a lot of good memories for me growing up and being a kid, because that's something that I did too. And I think that even if you were a kid that didn't have so much of that, I think it would still be interesting to read, because she writes it so well. And again, it's going to be funny. I just really liked this. I thought she has done an amazing job with this book. Now, I won't give away any of like the big conflict or climax of the book. You'll just have to read it. But something goes on with the radio show. It kind of like takes on a life of its own and becomes a lot bigger than they ever expect it to be. And this is one area that was just kind of, how do I say it? Hard to believe, I guess. I mean, and it's, again, and I've said this before in other reviews, I want things to be fantastical. It doesn't have to be super believable for me to enjoy it, but that doesn't mean that I can't point it out. That the resolution to a problem that arises just seems too perfect. Does that make sense? It's like, it just fit too perfectly. And I was glad that it did, because I always want, like, when there's a problem in a book or whatever, I want it to have, like, the best outcome, because that's just how I am. So I enjoyed it, and I thought it was interesting. But there was also a part of me that was just like, this is a little too unbelievable. But that's really, like, the only thing I could say about this book. And even then, it wasn't that big of a deal for me. Overall, it's a great book. I really enjoyed it. I loved it. Like I said, it's right up there with one of my favorite books of the year so far. Again, it's only the beginning of February, and I did read this in January. But I enjoyed it. I loved it. I laughed. It made me laugh. It made me feel deeper emotions than that. It had an interesting premise. The storyline is interesting. The characters are really what make this book great, in my opinion. And Emma's ability to really flesh out the characters. And the fact that it's funny. I keep going back to that. But she's so witty. She's so smart. And it really shines through in her book. So do I recommend it? Yes. If you enjoy reading YA fiction, this is definitely one to pick up. There is a little bit of romance that goes on, and you just root for them. Sometimes I don't root for couples, you know, or like, are they, aren't they, or should they, shouldn't they be couples scenarios. I'm really picky about that, but I think that she wrote their dynamic really well, and I just really liked it. It was also an interesting look into the life of someone who lives in a really big apartment complex, because I'm unfamiliar with that. I've only ever lived in a house. And the way that their apartment complex is described sounds really, really interesting to me. So that was just another little tidbit I thought was interesting. But yeah, I think that's it. Real simple, easy book review today, because it was great. Definitely give it a try if you like to read YA fiction, and even if you don't, maybe try something new, because it's definitely funny. Okay, and last but not least, we have to do what I always do, which is the bibliomancy, where we flip through the book and pick a passage at random and read it, and that's the message for us from the book. So let's do that. Okay, here we go. Right in here. It was stupid to come here. I thought about calling Mom, but I had made a big deal about missing dinner because I had plans. And anyway, she was all the way uptown at Dan's, and it would take just as long to get down here. I was embarrassed and annoyed and sad. I knew deep down that I deserved something like this for sure, at minimum, but I thought that Jamie was being genuine the night before. Jamie was always genuine. It was like the #1 Jamie quality. It was among the things I liked best. He wouldn't stand me up. Except he did, and I was too obtuse to even accept that it was happening. I went forward with the not date brainstorming session all on my own, despite all evidence that I was being stood up. That was kind of sad. Poor Nina. Being a teenage girl, man, it's not easy. Being a teenager of any gender is not easy. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have read Lucky Caller, please leave a comment and let me know how you liked it, or if it reminds you of any book that you've read, because I would love to read more stuff like this. Or if you've read anything from Emma, any of her other books, let me know which one is your favorite. I would say that this one so far, out of the ones that I've read, is my favorite. I think she's so funny. But yeah, hope you guys are doing well. I really appreciate you. I hope things are picking up and doing great in your life. And if they're not, if they're slowing down maybe, I wish you well. See you in my next video. Bye guys.